Okay, today I'm gonna show you guys how to trim your pieces, your cylinders that you threw last week. When it comes to trimming, you want to make sure that your piece is leather hard. You don't want it to be too soft because then the clay gets too sticky on your hands. When you scratch it with your nails, you don't get a lot of clay uh, gets stuck on your finger. Like it's not sticky. So that's a good time for you to trim your pieces. You want to make sure that you know the thickness at the bottom of your pieces. As you remember, when you're throwing, at first you measure the bottom of your pieces with a needle tool. And if you guys recall it, um, I had about half an inch thickness at the bottom of my pieces. So if I do that, like it's easy for me to remember. But if not, another way to figure out like the thickness at the bottom of your piece, it's either you can push a needle tool at the bottom. Once it hits on the other side, comes out from the other side, you know, like you pull it out, you can see the thickness. Another way I do is by touching my piece. So when I push my hand in here, I know where exactly my fingertips are touching at the bottom of the piece. So it's around this area. I'm going to scratch it with my nail. So this is the thickness that I have at the bottom. So it's about a little bit more than a quarter of an inch. Not exact, half an inch probably. So that's a good thickness that I have over there. You want also to check out the thickness on the walls, because obviously you don't want to trim too much, then you're going to cut off the either like a hole at the bottom of your piece or like on the wall. So again, like with the feelings, I can like see the thickness. So like it's a little bit thicker on this area on the wall. So I will be trimming a little bit from the wall as well. uh, if you remember, we talked about the rings on the wheel head. You want to use those in your advantage for trimming, because you have to center your piece on the wheel head. So I'm going to put it a little bit off so you guys can also like see the centering process for this piece. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my needle tool and hold it on the 4 o'clock position. Again, if as a reminder, if you look at your your wheel head and think of it as a clock, so 12 o'clock is over here, 6, 3, and 9 o'clock. And 4 o'clock would be on this area. I'm going to hold my needle tool on the 4 o'clock. And like remember, like you want to have your left hand supporting your right hand as you're holding the needle tool. As you can see, the needle tool is scratching some areas, but some areas it's not touching. I'm going to hold the start of the scratch to the end of it, wherever it ends, and find the center of that. So the scratch starts from here to this side, and the center of that is over here, okay? And I'm going to push towards the center a little bit. Clean that scratch mark that you made with your needle tool, and I'm going to do it again. Hold the needle tool in the 4 o'clock position. It's sort of like now scratching like all around. In some areas over here, it scratches a little bit less. So I'm going to push. So if this area that is scratching a little bit less, I'm going to hold my fingers. The center of it would be just right here. I'm going to push a tiny bit and clean that scratch mark. So this is one way to do it. Another way you want to do it is, I'm going to put it off center again. You want to hold your finger at the 4 o'clock position, and I'm holding it with my left hand. And I start the wheel very slowly. You want to go very slowly. And you can see my finger is touching some areas, but not all of it. Wherever it's touching, I'm going to push it in the middle a little bit. I want to hold it again. It's touching right now. I'm going to stop the wheel and push it again. Hold it. So it's touching right now pretty good over here, and it lets go. My fingertip stops touching it around this area. So it's touching this area, so I'm going to push it from this area towards the center of the wheel. So right now my finger is touching all around the piece evenly, so that means it's centered. You also want to make sure that you're holding your hand, your finger in an area not completely at the bottom, because the bottom might not be centered enough. You want to bring it up, down, like a little bit lower on the base, like on this side, on the body of your piece. So it is now centered. You want to grab some fresh pieces of clay. Okay, that's a little bit too much. We'll make a little coil. Hold down your piece. Put the clay at the bottom. You want to push it down. Don't push it in. You want to push the clay down with your thumb. That way, it pushes down the clay inside your piece. Excuse me. Oh my God. Okay, I'm gonna hold it down again. Put the clay. Again, don't push the clay like this. It will throw off your piece off center. You want to push it down a little bit. That will squeeze the clay into your piece, and that will hold your piece onto the... You don't have to use this much of clay. I'm just like showing you this time. It can be like a little bit less of this, but also it could be also a thing that you want to sort of like, it makes you be more you know, like on the safe side if you have more clay on the wheel. Okay, now you can use any of your loop tools. You have different ones probably like at home. The one that comes in the toolkit, it has like a straight edge and like round edge on the other side. It doesn't matter which side you use or what kind of like loop tool you use. It's just like a matter of like what kind of shape you want to get, and you want to just like trim your piece. The first thing I want to do, I'll start the wheel very slow. I'm going to make some circles on top of my piece, so it makes like a little guide for me on where I want to go. So these circles will help me for trimming. And then I'm going to take like, so we talked about that I had 1/2 inch over here. I'm going to take 1/4 of an inch from the middle. This also would be a guide. So hold your tool, and you want to make sure that you're holding your hand, your right hand with your left hand. Okay, I'm going to trim about 1/4 of an inch. Okay, so now I know that this is as much as I want to go down, so I don't pass this point, because if I do, then I'm going to end up with a hole at the bottom of my piece. Now I'm going to first also like to use this little hole that I made over here as like a holding point. And then as you can see, like when I'm holding my hand down, I have my left thumb on top of my right hand. Okay, and I'm going to trim like this. You just put your tool on the side of it. You don't want to put your tool this way. You want to put it a little bit in an angle. And it just does the work for you. You don't have to put too much pressure on this. when it comes to trimming, you can have your foot, the foot of your piece, however you like it. I'm going to show you different ways, like two different method that I use. I'm going to straighten up this thing. And remember, I talked about how much thickness I have on the wall, so I want to make sure that I don't go too far down. I'm going to just cut a little bit over here, make a little groove inside here. I always use my tool in an angle. And you can see I always have my left thumb on top of my right hand. This way helps me to keep everything steady. Yes, of course, sometimes like your hand might go off center. That's okay. Sometimes things happens. You might sneeze or something. That's all okay. Alright, so I'm done with this side. Now I want to go towards the middle. Clear out a little bit of the clay from the middle. And to do so, I'm going to trim from the outside towards the middle. When I do from the middle towards outside, if your hand get loose a little bit, you might cut off your foot. So that's why I like to use this area from this side towards the middle. And you can see like how the clay is like gets removed very easily. My clay's still a little bit on the soft side for trimming, but it will do. But if your clay is too soft, then your clay keeps getting stuck onto your piece. Alright, I'm going to use this side so you can also see like different areas of your tool that you can use. And you want to make sure that you're going with the speed of the wheel. You don't want to go too fast, because then you, if you go too fast, you end up with like an uneven line. So you want to make sure that you're going with the speed of the wheel. This is the same with your, when you're throwing your piece. You always want to go with the speed of the wheel. Okay? Alright, that's the bottom. I'm going to clean out the foot a little bit. And with the bottom, you can also have it like completely smooth, or you can have like these little rings caused by trimming. I'm going to have it smooth. And then you can also use your fingers. And see like how I'm holding it. I'm gently holding my left hand on the piece and my left thumb on my right hand. And I push my finger over here. Okay, clean out the foot a little bit. And that's one way to trim your pieces. Okay, once you're done, I actually like went a little bit far with this. I can feel it. Once you're done with that, you can write your name at the bottom. And you're done. Take the clay off. You can reuse this clay that you have at the bottom again for your next piece. I'm going to show you how to trim different way also. So this is how this one looks right now. Okay, that's the foot. And if I place the piece down on the wheel, you can see how it looks. This way sort of like gives like a little bit lifts your piece a little bit, so it gives a different look. Okay, I have a little bit smaller piece. I'm going to show you how else you can trim your foot. You don't have to have a foot if you don't want to. You can just like trim it straight and that would be it. But Here's the smaller piece I have over here. I'm going to feel and see like where the bottom is. So I'm feeling over here. It's about this area. Also, again, same thing. It's about 1/2 inch. The thickness of the wall is pretty good over here, so I don't want to trim anything from the wall. All right. Again, we're gonna do the centering again. I'll put it a little bit off center right now. I'm going to hold my finger, and it's all automatically, obviously, like it's touching too much on that area. So I'll push it in. Okay, right now it's touching, and it's not touching around this area. So that means this area it's touching, so I'm going to push it a little bit towards the center. Whenever it's touching, you want to push it the opposite direction. I'm going to hold it again. Feels pretty good. There's like some areas that it's not touching, so I'm going to adjust that a little bit. Always make sure your reel is going very slow during this process. You don't want to go too fast because then your piece will start flying off the reel head. I'm going to hold your piece down. You don't want to put too much pressure. You're just holding it down. Make sure it's not moving when you're pressing this clay over here. And you're pushing the clay down, and the clay itself, it will gets pushed underneath your piece. And that will hold your piece. This one also, I'm gonna push it down. Again, you don't have to use this much of clay. Push it down. You can test it again. Feels pretty centered right now to me. I grab my tool. With the tool, I'm going to make some little circles to guide me. Okay. Now this one I'm gonna change up like a little bit how I'm going to trim this one. I'm going to make my little mark for the bottom. About 1/4 of an inch, since the thickness at the bottom I have it's 1/2 inch. Okay, so that's my guide. I'm going to trim a little bit on the side too, at the bottom. I'm going to bring it down pretty much to the point of 1/4 of an inch. Okay, clean it up a little bit on the side because when I was pushing down, some clay got pushed out. Okay, clean it down a little bit. So this one, the clay is a little bit on the soft side, so you can see I'm having a little bit of difficulty, but that's okay. And I'm going to trim a little bit from outside towards the middle. Going to use the straight side to get rid of those lines I was having. Clean out the foot a little bit. Push it a little bit off center on the side when I was like trimming, so that's why you see like a little bit like the clay is going up and down on the side over here. That's okay, I don't mind it. Again, remember, you're not doing it for perfection, we're doing it. If you wanted perfection, we would have given this to a device or a computer to make it for us. So right? This is another way you can have your foot. Just make sure that you don't want to bring, you want to make sure where you put the foot over here. If you have it too much in the center, let me mark it. That's it. If you had your foot on this little area, that little circle that it just made, then there's not much a spot for the cup or cylinder to sit on. Okay, you want to make sure that you have it wide enough so there's enough space for your cup to sit on it. If it's too in there, the foot is too much in there, then it's going to be wobbly and then it's not going to sit perfectly. So always make sure that you have it a little bit on the outside. Another thing is like, if your piece is larger and you have more area to hold on to cover at the bottom of your piece, you want to make sure that you put your foot on the right spot, because at Cone 10, gravity is not our friend. So if the foot is on the wrong spot, your piece can warp down and just slump, and it like changes the shape. So always keep that in mind. So right now this will sit pretty good over here, and that's the foot that I have. Make sure you want to write your name at the bottom, and you're all set.